Every athlete and every coach in the world should watch this video because it describes something so fundamental that all athletes need to have this knowledge. This knowledge doesn't come from me. It comes from neuroscience, and especially a world-famous neuroscientist by the name of Dr. Fred Travis. Dr. Travis was hired by the Norwegian Olympic Athletic Committee to study the brain waves of their athletes. And essentially, this video will describe why emotion breaks down. Now, after someone has practiced emotion successfully enough times, the memory of that motion is stored in the part of the brain known as the basal ganglia. So if an athlete is competing on a high level, whether it's professional or high level of amateur competition, they have stored enough muscle memory that they should be able to repeat the motion. Now, there are only two reasons why they cannot access the muscle memory they have stored in their basal ganglia in competition. And this is the same for all athletes. It doesn't matter what sport it is, golf, tennis, basketball, football, Olympic skiing, hockey, whatever, because everyone's operating system works identically. Now, here are the two reasons why. First reason, because the prefrontal cortex intercepts the signal, delays it moving to the motor system, and when that happens, it's the motor system which communicates with the body to produce motion. When that happens, an athlete cannot access the stored muscle memory they have in the basal ganglia. And this is when the bulkier core muscles take over and the motion is not fluid or smooth or effective. The second reason why an athlete who has enough muscle memory stored that they should be able to repeat their motion on demand is when the parts of the motion overshadow the wholeness of the motion. This is a very interesting concept. When the parts of the motion overshadow and dominate in an athlete's awareness the wholeness of the motion, then that athlete will not be able to access the muscle memory that's been stored in their basal ganglia. And in many ways, this is a deep criticism of how sports are taught, and especially how sports are coached in professional situations. Because the worst thing you can tell an athlete, or the most damaging, or one of the more damaging, if not the most damaging things you can tell an athlete in competition, is that you should be concentrating more on some specific aspect of your motion. You're not getting your racket back, you're not moving your feet, you're not keeping your eye on the ball, your wrist isn't in the wrong position. And this is exactly what happened to Tiger Woods at the Masters. Exactly. What happened to Tiger Woods at the Masters is that the parts, or one part, or a specific move that he wanted to make during his motion dominated in his awareness the motion, and therefore he could not access the muscle memory that he had already stored up. He had a lot of muscle memory stored up on the swing changes he was making with Sean Foley, simply because he won at Bay Hill 2 weeks ago before the Masters, swinging beautifully. He was swinging beautifully up to and during the practice week at the Masters, and then his swing broke down. And it's interesting because in an interview afterwards, where he shot the highest score he's ever shot in a major tournament since he turned professional, he said, "Well, I just have to go out and do more reps." That was his quote, "I have to do more reps." Well, not exactly, Tiger. It's not that you have to do more reps. It's that you just have to be able to access the muscle memory that you've already stored up. And if during a tournament your awareness is too much on the parts and not on the wholeness of the swing, it doesn't matter how many reps you have done. You will not be able to access the muscle memory that is in the bank. So the whole key is to avoid these two things. The whole key in order to perform at a high level in competition is, one, do not have the prefrontal cortex, which is the intellect, intercept the signal, so you can access the muscle memory you've already stored in the basal ganglia. And two, if the parts of your motion dominate, if you understand the motion in terms of parts and not in terms of wholeness, you will also not be able to access the muscle memory that you've stored in the basal ganglia. And this is a tremendous liberating thought for an athlete, because it's much easier to repeat the wholeness of the swing than trying to repeat successfully a certain part of that wholeness, so that you think that you can repeat the swing if you repeat that part. No, this is not good thinking. This is not how the operating system of the brain works. Hope this was helpful for you. Give me some feedback. Keep that wholeness in mind. Have a great day.